Welcome to a special RadioRadioX music video interview. I am your host, Justin Smulison, proud contributor here at RadioRadioX. I am delighted to present an interview with this gentleman right here, Mr. Mark Zonder, one of the great American metal drummers. You know him as the drummer for Fates Warning for years. One of his permanent bands that he co-leads is A through Z. And A through Z's brand new album, A2Z Squared, or A2Z2, is available now from the brilliant minds at Metal Blade Records. You are hearing a clip of the song Nothing Is Over, one of the lead singles off the album. And if the voice sounds familiar, or if the image of this gentleman is familiar, that's because it is Ray Alder, the singer of Fates Warning. Now, Fates Warning is not exactly active doing studio work anymore, so Ray thankfully rejoined with Mark Zonder to form the band a few years back, and they have a revamped lineup, including this gentleman right here. I'm a huge fan of Nick Van Dyke of Redemption, who also used to play with Ray Alder, so you see how all this camaraderie is leading to one of the finest metal albums of 2025. A2Z2 right over there. So, Mark and I are going to talk all about the new album. We're also going to talk about the first album, A through Z, and what it was like to create this music, and what fans can expect in the way of new music and upcoming live performances that we're all clamoring for. So, let's get to it. RadioRadioX audiences worldwide, please welcome the incomparable Mark Zonder. And is drumming all you've ever known, or are you also a musician on other instruments?
No, it's always been the drums since I was 7. I always felt, and this conversation's come up over the years in different forms and even in my own head, especially when Phil Collins, when you see Phil Collins come out. But
yeah,
no, I always felt that whatever time I took away from the drumming, I'd be taking away from the drumming. As much as I'd go learn piano or guitar or any of that, I always wanted to spend the time playing the drums. I thought you got to give it, everything you have.
Yeah.
Plus, I just loved it. The other things didn't draw me, so
right.
Doodling around with my hands and not using my feet, not a big fan.
Right.
I don't know. It's the one instrument, when you think about it, it is the most physical instrument.
And I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it does incorporate the whole body instead of just the hands. So, no, I've just been drawn to it. I mean, I've been blessed that I had that my whole life, and it's always been a passion. And even today, it's even more of a passion, because the more you learn and the more you play, it just gets big. You realize that it can just be bigger and bigger and bigger. When you're younger, as much as people are intimidated, like, oh, I can't play like this guy and that guy, the bottom line is you don't really know anything. And you don't know the real possibilities of how far it can really go. So I always said, the more you learn, the more the doors open, and then it's something else and something else. And it's endless. It's absolutely endless.
Yeah. And so we've got now A2Z Squared.
Yep.
Yeah. And
trying to get a little fancy there. Actually, my dad was a chemical engineer, and I grew up in the big math family, so I was very familiar with that. And, you could have just went A2Z2, that
right.
But, again, just like everything else, trying to do it as creative as possible.
Yeah.
Trying to make it as different as possible.
And speaking of difference, I mean, we're going to get into this in a little bit, but one of my favorite guys joined the group. And tell everyone who he is and where we know him from.
I gather you're talking about Mr. Van Dyke.
Yeah.
I've known Nick for over 30 years, probably. I'll never forget the first time he walked into Bill's place. Fates Warning was rehearsing, and he came walking in because he was a friend of Ray's at the time. One of those guys, just like Philip Bino, I would leave him my car keys, my kids, and my checkbook. Just a great guy. And, we did the first record, and everything was great, and everybody knew exactly what I wanted to do. The vision was laid out day one. Everything was laid out. And then all of a sudden, you get a couple guys that just go MIA, and I couldn't have my career, held hostage. And so I had to move on. I started working with other people, and nothing was really happening too much. Nick and I go to see Kansas, and he says to me, hey, we've been talking about this for a long time. Why don't we just start writing stuff, and let's just start working. Not through A through Z or anything like that, just start doing it. So we started doing it. It was great. It was going in. It was great. I wasn't looking at it like, oh, is this A through Z or not? I'm just going, oh, wow, this is really cool. This is good. This is, because you never know. You start working with somebody as much as your friends and everything. You never know.
Dynamic could change. Absolutely.
So we go to see, we could become the biggest a-holes to each other, do it this way. No, I'm not doing it that way. You do it that way, But there was total respect, so that wasn't a problem. Also a lot of maturity and communication, which is always good and a welcomed introduction into the band.
Yeah.
But Nick and I'm playing with Chris and Pelletieri at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame thing when Chris is being inducted. And it's right down the street from my house here. And Nick comes backstage and he says to me, he goes, hey, I've been thinking about this. You worked so hard to get that album to where it was. It did so well. You did amazing things all by yourself to lift this to a certain point. It charted, which a lot of other bands' records chart too, but it didn't go in the toilet. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And it was amazingly well received. The label was so shocked at what it was and how it did. And Nick says, hey, how about we just use this and we'll carry on A through Z. Basically wanted to kiss him on the lips, but I didn't. And we were off and running. It was like all of a sudden there's new life. Bringing in Jimmy Waldo was a no-brainer. Playing keyboards, I'd work with him with the Graham Bonnet Band. Also, he kind of the X factor. I look at him as the dirt in your shoe between the sock and the shoe. He creates that grit and that line in a positive way, not in the bad way. Like you got to get that little piece of rock out of your shoe.
Right.
It's the edge. The first album had the keyboards much more in a Genesis, Gentle Giant, kind of fluffy and floaty style, and you relied on the guitar only for the distortion and the heaviness. But Jimmy brings that John Lord Hammond B3 kind of. I'm sure he's probably sick and tired of hearing his comparison to John Lord, but that's the benchmark for it. And
excellent.
Simone, I brought in because Simone mixed the first record. He was mixing the second record. There's no question.
Yeah.
But Nick said to me, he goes, hey, man, this guy is the greatest guitar player I've ever seen. How about we bring him in to play leads? Nick has like zero ego in this respect. And Nick didn't play a lead basically on he played parts, but he was like, oh, no, which is the philosophy of the band. Let's get the best guys to do what we can do.
Right.
You hire the best engineer, get the best artist, everything you got to do it the right way. And so I asked Simone if he would do that. And we worked it out, and then he just went nuts. And I told all the guys, play everything all over the place, and we'll worry about it later. I just want to hear all the creativity.
Right.
Simone is X Factor too, where all these little subliminal melody lines behind the music that don't really stick out, but if you took them out, you would notice that something's wrong, something's not right. So I pity the cover band that's going to try to play these songs, but his stuff was just phenomenal.
Yeah. And for anybody who does not know, he is a fantastic guitarist and producer. He has a group called DGM, which is fantastic. And he's, from what I understand about him, he's a very smart and reliable guy.
The word you're looking for, and it gets bantered around a lot, is pro. He's pro.
He's a pro. There you go. He's a pro.
And everybody likes to say that word, but there are very few guys. Everybody in that picture is a pro.
Yep.
But there's plenty of guys that I played in my career that aren't pros. They say they're pros and they think they're pros. And it's one of those things, everybody can be professional until like the crap hits the fan.
Right.
Something's happening. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but where things are happening and then all of a sudden guys disappear for 6 months, and stuff like that. That's not pro.
Right.
But no, that in working with Simone on mixing the first record, it was literally like me reaching through my computer and changing the faders myself.
He just had the intuition. He knew it.
He knew. He was so quick on the response. And when I suggested something, or there's certain things like, hey, dude, 2 dB at 4K on the snare drum. Okay, that's pretty definitive. Okay, let's try it. But if there was times when I'd say, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something going on in the low end. And he knew exactly like what I was talking about and how to give me options and stuff like that. So it's just great. You go with the best that you can find. And the funny story about this is on that first record, I auditioned 9 guys. I paid 9 guys to mix a song. One of the guys won 9 Grammys. Big time guy. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here we go. This is going to be.
Yeah.
Sounded horrible,
Really?
Oh, it sounded horrible. Simone cared. Simone gets it. You know, he understands that this is all analog drums. We're not cutting to the grid. There's no samples on the kick and the snare and the toms and all that routine. It's just really clean, tight analog drum sounds. And that's kind of where it all starts from.
Yeah.
Where your record starts from. So when you get into that and you're slamming samples on the kick and your kick sounds like everybody else's kick, and then all of a sudden your snare drum sounds like everybody else's snare drum, you know, we weren't doing that. So Simone's great. All those guys in that picture right there are fantastic.
Excellent. So to catch everybody up, in case I haven't done this in the intro, so a lot of people know that you and Ray were in Fate's Warning together. Mm-hmm. And what some people might know also is that Nick and Ray were in Redemption together. Now, Redemption's still a group. Nick is still the leader of Redemption, but Ray is no longer the singer. So we're getting, in a weird, great way, like a family reunion of the Ray Alder projects here in A to Z. And this is, I think, what a lot of longtime fans have been looking for. But also, if you're a modern metalhead, you're going to be sort of blown away by some of the technicalities, the technical stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Well, take it a step further. Yeah. Philip played on the first A through Z album.
Yes.
Okay. Philip and Jimmy playing Warlord with me.
Right.
They recorded Warlord with me.
That's true.
So
yes.
It's one big fat ass incestuous situation.
Yes. But you're surrounded by your friends who are pros.
Bing. There's a thing that I learned after that first go round. And at my age, I didn't think I was going to have to go through this again, but you really do need to surround yourself with people that you love, people that you trust, people that are going to buy into what you're doing. Because I have a very, very specific, not musically, like, hey, play this note, play that note, but I have a very specific direction. You know, it's all about the chorus. It's all about the hook. After that, we can do what we want. We're not doing 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-minute songs. You know, we're not doing this. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But within that confines, everybody can do whatever they want. And I actually wound up with Philip and Simone pushing them, saying, dude, play more, play more,
yeah,
more. Same with Ray, dude, sing more, sing here, sing there. Hey, can you make this heavier? Make it, you know, like pushing them on because everybody's a pro and they don't want to overstep. But some of the overstepping stuff is just, that's the magic. And the fact that each guy can do whatever they want. And Ray, we send him the music. We don't tell him where the verse is. We don't tell him where the chorus, that we like where we think it is. Mm-hmm. And he sang over parts that we thought were musical, and he didn't sing over parts that we thought were going to be verses that we changed it up to fit his vocal style.
Yeah.
Because I want each guy just to be overly creative.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of my favorite songs on this album, if not my favorite, is Nothing Is Over. Is that a single yet?
That is the single.
That is the single. Okay.
It's actually approaching, believe it or not, 200,000.
Whoa. Yeah. I don't, you know, sometimes I watch the videos and stuff and sometimes I don't. I should pay more attention to the single part of things. But that one, I think let's start. Ray hits it from the beginning. He's really, I don't want to say he's over the top, but he's coming on with a lot of force just from the start. Yep. And it sets the tone. That one kind of gives me, it makes the hairs on my arm stand up just thinking about it. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, it's interesting. That's the first song that Nick and I, as I remember pretty much, that's the first one that we, quote, completed. Mm-hmm. You know, interesting story on that one. When Nick came in with the idea, it was in a major key. And I'm not a big major guy. I like it dark. I like it. I know there's bands like Foreigner and a lot of other bands that can play in between that major and minor and make it work. Right. I'm not a big fan of that.
Okay.
So, and here, this goes to the pro and just buying into what I'm trying to sell here. He flipped it to major flipped it to minor, and we were kind of off and running, and we put the song together. We knew we wanted choruses. We knew short, sweet, hard rocking song.
Yeah.
We were thinking single at the time. We were just like, let's just write a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And, Simone coming in and adding those little lines are just incredible. It's a two guitar attack, but it's not like, okay, dude, you play the rhythms and I'll play the leads. There's intertwining going on. I think, again, Ray being a pro just kind of takes the music and does what he feels that it does. I'm sure he felt the energy in that. I'm sure he felt the oomph where he couldn't just sing it like you would like a medium tone ballady type of rock tune. You know, and I kept pushing him. I kept, dude, more aggression.
He matches the intensity. Yeah, totally.
I told him, I go, I'm not expecting no exit screams. Okay, I get it. Okay, that ship sailed. I get it. But I want that, like someone just smacked you in the face and you're responding. You know, you're pissed. You're like, because that's what that when you hit, I mean, you hear that guitar line and that drum line in the bass. It's heavy with that, but it's heavy melodic. Is what it is. You know, it's heavy melodic.
And when you talk about the dueling, it's also there with your bass player, Philip. I mean, that's going back and forth, right?
Oh, yeah. He's just, yeah.
I love listening to that. There's so much great stuff going on in that song. And even if it was an instrumental track, there'd be plenty to dig into and listen to it on repeat.
It's funny that you say that because obviously there was a point where all these songs never had vocals. You know,
Right.
And I would sit and listen over and over and over and kind of think of ideas to change things or add things. But I had that same thought that went through my head a couple of times. Going, man, this is kind of like, this could work, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, if Satriani can do it, we can do it. I mean, come
exactly. On. And Metal Blade does that every once in a while, where they'll provide the instrumental version of an album that was very technically profound. So it'd be fine with me if you do a special release like that, just remember me and we'll pick it up and start talking technical stuff. I don't know much about it, but I'll make my way through a 20-minute conversation with Mark Zonder.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about Running in Place? That's a cool one too, because you've got RadioRadioX. Who is that? Is that, I imagine, like a crowd cheering somebody on, basically?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's our fans. I sent out a thing about a year and a half ago.
That's right.
That had a click track and a basic guide track. We got about 100 and I think it was like 120. We got a whole bunch of things. We got some weird stuff. I got to tell you, man. Some stuff was just like right in the game and cool, and some people did it with their kids, and that's great. And that showed up. I mean, there was some dark.
Oh, really?
Dark Cookie Monster crap going on, man. It was crazy. But no, I just had that idea again. When I listen to this music over, and I've listened to it gazillions of times, you know, in the demo stage, in the working it up stage, even in the final stage before it went to mastering and like, okay, this is it. You can't change anything anymore. It's funny. There's a couple spots, not to change the subject back to Nothing is Over, but in the second verse, there's these accents that Ray sang that we didn't have in there in the second verse. And I heard that. As soon as I heard that, I said, Nick, let's change this. And we accent with it, which just makes those really special kind of things. Plus, it proves to people that we're not cutting and pasting, which is more important. But I'm just kidding. No, Running in Place. I thought that would be like that spot right there was perfect for that. You know, whether it's Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses. I mean, it's something that Poison would do, Sebastian Bach, whatever. I just thought it worked perfectly. Plus, I saw it in a live format that it could really work. Plus, the engagement of the fans.
Yeah,
that's another. There's a whole.
It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll remember, but you know, when we first spoke, it was when the first A to Z album came out, and you had mentioned that you were like this album going for more straight ahead rock metal tunes. You weren't looking for anything overly proggy, nothing too long. And if I'm remembering, I'm going to paraphrase you, but you said you were going for Cobra Kai. That's what you wanted. And
your commercials, car commercials. I mean, picture Cobra Kai. Okay, picture Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Johnny just gets his ass beat in some tournament or whatever. He's maybe a little bloody. He's getting in his car. He's got the beer. And then he's about to shift, you know, and take off in that beat up Trans Am or whatever he's got.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Nothing Is Over comes on. And like, that's the theme of Nothing Is Over. He's going back for revenge now.
Totally.
All the songs actually would fit that, to be honest.
Yes. So. It's too bad the show's over, but yeah. but what struck me about that part of the conversation, I'm sure I wasn't the only person you told that to, was that you kept that, and clearly you're leaning into it even more on this album, and it's working because the choruses are a little bit more concise. They're very easy to remember. They're memorable, and I could see an audience getting behind it very easily.
It's interesting you say that because I always kind of went with, as long as you have the hook, you can do whatever else you want around it.
Right.
And I think we've kind of proven that because I think this record is heavier. So some people go, wow, it's heavier. That's not going to be as, quote, accessible or commercial. commercial, but that's not true, obviously. If you have the hook, and especially if you have more than one hook in a song, which we do several times, there's like songs that have a couple different bridges and choruses and even musical parts, kind of like a Carry On My Wayward Son. And I'm not equating it to that, but I'm saying there's different parts of a song that are hooks to themselves, that are memorable hooks. As long as you have the hook, I definitely think there's more playing on this, a little more out of the box, I guess you could say. But the one thing that works, I think this is the underlying thing, the big chorus, plus the one thing that I think that this band does that a lot of other bands don't do, especially prog bands, is they don't groove. They don't have a pocket. They're not in the groove. You can't just tap your head. Your average person can't tap your head. If you're tapping it to 8-5-8-5, you just can't do it, you know? But this stuff, as much as it has the out of the box playing, very, very, very little odd time, if any. I think on Chaotic Symphony, they're 5s and 7s, but I put them together and make them 10s and 14s. So you're not getting that kind of falling off the end of the stair kind of feeling. Because I always thought it was important that the audience be able to grab it, even if it's in odd time. Because you don't want the audience to have that look on their face like, huh?
Yeah.
You want that thing to go. So I think that's what we've definitely accomplished that one. I mean, I think it's great that you think the hooks are bigger, better, stronger. That's great. I don't know if there's anything intentional. Maybe it just has to do with the chemistry of the players.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, definitely, there was a lot more love quote going on. And I think you see that in that video, Nothing Is Over. All that background footage stuff was just candid.
Yeah.
And you got guys that, I keep going back to that. I know people get sick and tired of it, but it's kind of like a sports team where the coach has a philosophy and the coach wants to do something a certain way. And then everybody's buying in, you know, everybody gets it. Everybody understands it. And they're going to do 110% to uplift it and even take it to the next level instead of trying to take it their way. No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to shoot it every time I got it, you know, kind of, I'm not going to pass it. Why am I passing it? You know, that kind of thing. Everybody just bought in, and the respect factor between all the guys is great. So
excellent. You know what? I have not watched the video. I've only listened to it and just kind of let my mind create the videos for me. But I will eventually, of course.
Well, there's 2 out right now. There's Nothing Is Over.
And I Am Numb's the other one?
I Am Numb. That's over 100,000.
Yeah.
And also each one of those has the drum playthrough that I did where Simone sent me the track minus the drums, and I played live drums, recorded it, and then he mixed it back in kind of thing. And if you're a drummer, or even if someone that's interested in the drums, you get Alex Solka did an amazing job recording those, and you get a couple different angles, and you really see what's going on from the drum point of view.
Well, speaking of which, I'm wearing a shirt that's really cool. It's from a band called Becoming, and they're led by my friend Jason Hardawin. He's a drummer, and I'm looking down only because I want to read to you what he wrote to me when I told him I was interviewing you. He saw you. He loves you. He saw Fate's Warning in a tiny club many years ago. Sounded just as good live as on the records. Dude is a beast with the power of Bonham and the precision of Pert. Your reaction, Mr. Z?
Thank you very much.
There it is.
You know, and to quote it, nothing left to say. No, yes, you know, I have my own thoughts on, and you know, I've been doing this. I mean, God, you know, we're basically at the 60-year mark of playing the drums kind of thing. But I appreciate all the comments. That's very nice. It really just comes down to the love of the instrument, the practice, and because I love to practice. It's not, when I was a kid, I didn't love to practice. Okay. I was on the practice pad, I think, for 5 years before I got a drum set. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I was not in love with the practice pad. But once things started to roll, it's a love, but it's also, whether I was born with it or my parents gave it to me or just the work ethic that I saw in them and whatever, is like really stepping out of the box and really like trying anything and everything, and just really pushing that envelope and trying to be creative. And that's like my main goal. I never sat there and went through basic rock drum fill beats. You know, I never wanted to be one of those guys. I never wanted to, you know, play in a cover band. I never wanted to rely on someone else to make money. That's why I do things on the side, or whatever you want to call it, with the studios, to make money, because I want to do what I want to do. And I've always been like that. Oh boy, that used to get me in trouble with my mom when I was a kid. But you know, no, I appreciate that. There's I think also too, I've really stretched and pushed the limits. I studied a lot of Afro-Cuban at one time, got heavily into Tower of Power and Dave Garibaldi and his book. Tommy Igoe has a really good book where you just steal things and come up with different thought patterns and like, oh, I can think this way. And a lot of it's just sitting and spending the hours playing and playing and playing and creating. Or when you're not behind the kit, thinking of, oh, let me try this, let me try that, that kind of thing. But no, that's very nice. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, he's going to be listening. And I was also wondering, I don't remember if A through Z has ever toured. Have you done any shows?
That was part of the problem with the collapse of the first lineup,
right?
Where a couple guys couldn't do it, and then it kind of all just went in the toilet.
So what's the status now?
We're looking to tour. We've for a while now. The label's very aware. The label's invested. I mean, the label. This isn't like, hey, here's your recording budget. We'll see what happens. They're actively involved. They brought everybody out here from around the world for 5 days in LA to do videos and photo shoots and all that kind of great stuff. Yeah, and we're putting on a massive campaign, doing anything and everything that we possibly can. And they're out looking for the touring stuff, through different agencies and stuff like that. No, but absolutely, we know that it's 65 to 70% of the game. Everybody can do a record. Not everybody can do a record like this, I would think, but everybody can do a record. And in this day and age, kind of anything flies. But the real separation of the men and the boys is the ones that can go out and play it live. And to tell you a quick story, when we were doing those videos, we were in a big warehouse, and I was the only one technically playing because everybody else was plugged in. It wasn't plugged in. My drums were stuffed with towels just to keep the sound down a little bit. But I had the click going on my headphones and the tune, and I was playing, and I had to film all 15 takes of every song because I'm in the background. But I felt it. I saw magic. I was playing like it was Madison Square Garden, and I was looking out, and I saw Philip, I saw Ray, and I thought, oh man, this is like a band of freaking rock stars. I mean, this is not like dudes cowering behind their instruments. These are dudes that are playing the instrument. They're like part of it, man. And it was, it was great. So yes, absolutely. We're trying to figure something out. We're looking for an opening slot, which would be the best to open up something else that draws a little bit better than we would, and come in and play your quick 50 minutes and knock it out and move on.
I think you got to get on a bill with either Armored Saint or Category 7. That's where it's at.
I'm thinking Journey, Sticks, and Kansas myself. But
all right. Because I want to see Ray Alder and John Bush on the same night. That's part of it. I'm a little selfish.
Maybe we just arrange a dinner.
Okay.
Not to be argumentative, but the problem with that is that anybody that is going to be there for any of those bands knows all those bands. It's like if we went out again, and as much as we would drop everything and go out with Queensryche, okay?
Yeah.
No question. But it would be really hard pressed to think that anybody that's a Queensryche fan doesn't know Fate's Warning, doesn't know the object. And what I've said to plenty of guys, and please don't take this personally, the greatest interview would be if you got on the Zoom here with me and looked at me and said, hey man, I have no clue of who you are, but I love your record.
Oh, okay.
Because we need to get out of that. We need to get into a different genre. And the label agrees that this is the one band that has that possibility. It's that AOR commercial rock possibility.
But wouldn't I run the risk of almost insulting the guest if I tell them I don't know you?
Absolutely not.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
As long as, put it this way, if you said, hey, I don't know who you are and your album sucks,
that's an insult.
That's an insult. But I love your album, and where have you guys been all my life?
Right. Well, I've had those moments with some artists where maybe they were a band that went on a 20-year hiatus and then they come back, and then you go like that sort of thing has happened. But I always feel a responsibility to do some research on them before I just go into it.
There's research, and then they know my shoe size. Okay.
Oh, okay.
They know my career starting back. Oh, I know that was a Remo practice pad when you were 9 years old because I read it. The diehard fans are great. That's what keeps us going. That's great. But you need to get out to that other thing, and have some success there, and it's the exposure, right? You're trying to sell records, you're trying to sell tickets, you're trying to get that beer commercial or that car commercial or the thing, and this band is built that way. It's made for that. It's 10 singles. One or two might not be singles just because of the progressive nature, but as a whole, it's made to be singles.
Yeah.
You know, it's made to sell. The critical acclaim thing is great, but it only goes so far. I think I've taken that one about as far as I can take it.
Right. Right.
Um,
So the album's coming out on Friday, and yep. And so this should be out right around that time, give or take a day or two. And is there, I mean, you've basically said a lot to the fans and presumably the new fans when they hear the album. Is there anything you'd like to say to anyone who's going to hear A through Z for the first time?
Just sit back and listen to the entire record, top to bottom. It is not a concept record by any means, but there was a lot of time and energy put into the sequencing of the record. As far as if you sit there and listen to it all the way through, it's kind of like a concert kind of roller coaster ride. You know, you got the first two songs, Fire Away, running right into Running in Place, where it's tied together, just like a concert where a band will come out and play a couple songs before, you know, tied together before a singer, you know, sets in. But no, just give it a listen. Hopefully by the time the second chorus comes up, you got it and you'll remember it. But, you know, we put a lot of time and energy in the production. I think the best compliment that we've ever gotten is people say it sounds like an analog record.
Okay.
And it kind of is an analog record. I mean, it's not, but it's this day and age, there's no tape machine here in the studio, but everything going into it is analog. Everything is tube mics and tube preamps and that kind of thing. We're not sampling, you know,
we call that keeping it real.
I call it old school, but yes.
Old school.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We basically only use the computer to record into. It's like Sony came out back in the day, it was like $200,000 and it gave you 32 tracks of digital. Well, now for 1995, you know, you have a gazillion tracks, you know, so.
Right.
But yeah, no, everything's good. The video, the third video, The Remedy, comes out Monday, June 9th.
Okay.
Also, we're going to have a couple other merch specials that we have that you can get. You can find them and see them on Facebook, whether it's the A through Z thing or, you know, Facebook page or our website, which is a-zband.com.
Mm-hmm.
And all the information's there. And we have all kinds of stuff we're doing. We have little contests going on of sending in a picture of you with the album in a goofy kind of thing. We're going to be giving away, you know, merchandise and drumsticks that were used on the albums that I saved and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we're just kind of pushing as much as we can.
You're really branching out with the engagement, which is great. A lot of bands, I don't know how much they can do like that, but I'm glad that you're doing it.
Well, yeah, I got taught that lesson the first time around, and God bless the people at Metal Blade for helping me along with Instagram and this, that, and the other. And my daughter too. I mean, half the time I'm going, what is this? You know, I mean, I hit the wrong button. Oh no, you didn't do it right. You know.
So Mark, is there going to be an A to Z cubed?
Yes, it might have. I'm not sure if it's going to be called that, but I'll promise you this: there's no animals, and there's no you know, teeth on that one. I've got the idea. You see animals and teeth. There's a lot of animals and teeth there. I've got the basic idea. We'll see what Hugh Syme does with it, but I have we're branching out after the things. Funny story is on that first album cover, I just gave Hugh the name of the band. He wanted lyrics and melody lines or whatever. And I said, well, we don't have them. And I don't like giving them to an artist because I don't want the album to be like one song. I just like that. And he popped that one back rather quick. And I was like, okay, that's great. The second one, though, my friend Mark Cubbage and I were kind of throwing A through Z stuff around. And he came up with the idea with the alligator, you know, and then the zipper.
Yeah. And there's an ant on the alligator's nose.
Well, it's the ant there. And then you see the zebra in the background. Those guys were on the first record. So they were contractually bound to make an appearance on the second record. So that's just your classic Hugh Syme kind of thing. So that was our idea, and Hugh ran with it, and I think it's just absolutely fantastic. I think it's part of the big picture of, you know, go big or go home kind of thing. You have album covers like that, you have packaging like that, you have, you know, production, you spend the time and the energy to just take it to the nth degree. I'm thinking it has to pay off at some point in the game, you know.
I would assume so. So we're looking at hopeful tour for A through Z. Yep. And you know, a third installment of their music, and just more from Mark Zonder, because you've got other things going on as well. You got Warlord. I've seen you on some other groups too. There was a group called Veritas.
Yeah, I used to do I still do, but I've done hundreds of recordings for other bands. It's basically being hired to record the drums because I have the analog drum studio here that produces that sound.
Yeah.
But I've done a million of those, but it's A through Z. Warlord. We're playing around with new music. We've got some dates coming out. We're opening up for Priest on July 2nd in Italy. Playing a few shows. Just love playing that stuff. Those guys are great too. Just again, just a fun time. It's a great hang. We'll see where that goes. But the main focus is A through Z. That's the one that can have the payoff. It's like it's new. It's fresh. It's ready to go. We need to get out on tour. We need to play some shows. We've also talked about the fact of even if the shows, if you don't get the hook into a tour, we've got to plan something like playing 5 dates on the East Coast or doing something because it is so important between, you play 5 shows. Okay. The word of mouth, number 1, number 2, the people filming, number 3, us filming, we'll get so much mileage and just really get it out of that. And again, the ugliest word in the music business is project. So and it's not a project because I think I've proven since day one, it's more like a franchise. It's like, okay, it's going to continue. It might be a little different. And we're going to add the new soft drink to it and get rid of that soft drink or whatever. But I mean, I'm 110% in and it's continuing rolling on. Nick's already told me he's got a folder happening where he's got ideas for the next record.
Okay.
Oh, we're going. And I know all the guys will be in, and we're going.
There you have it. All right, Mark, it's been a real pleasure to connect with you again. And I hope you do those dates on the East Coast here for us. And I'll be front row. And
awesome.
It'll be great to see you live.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Special thanks again to Mark Zonder for joining us here on RadioRadioX. The new album from A through Z is A to Z Squared, or A to Z2. It is available from our friends at Metal Blade Records. At the top and during the interview, you heard a clip of Nothing Is Over, and we also played a clip of I Am Numb, and now you're hearing a clip of A Wordless Prison, all of which are off of A to Z2, or A to Z Squared. Be sure to check out A through Z's self-titled debut, which is also available through Metal Blade Records. Check out the band on social and visit www.a-zband.com for more information. And as always, be sure to make legitimate purchases of the music, merch, and eventual concert tickets to support hardworking artists like Mark Zonder and A through Z. Be sure to head on over to RadioRadioX.com for all things music. We've got reviews, we've got interviews, we've got all sorts of great content. I've got an interview with local drumming favorite Jason Bittner of Shadows Fall and Category 7, and another with powerhouse drummer Sean Duncan of LA Guns. I've also got interviews with John Bush, the singer of Category 7 and Armored Saint, and Flotsam and Jetsam guitarist Michael Gilbert, and more. I'd like to thank Art and Rob and everyone over there at the Radio Radio X headquarters. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and all social channels. And be sure to keep coming back to RadioRadioX.com for more updates. I've got more video interviews on the way as well. I am Justin Smulison, new contributor here at Radio Radio X. Thank you so much for tuning in. There's more on the way.